This is a response to Got That Funk's response to me. His video is titled Ripples. And I'm not making a position as far as arguing how you should feel. What I want to do is tell you how I feel. Not saying this is the right way to feel, it's just the way I feel. And I think some of it has to do with the way I was raised. I'm pretty sure that neither of my parents would have really felt much at the idea that people live on in your memories and there are ripples and so forth. I mean, it's a very beautiful concept, and I'm sure that many, probably a majority of people, atheists included, feel that that is very comforting. And I'm not saying this from a standpoint of logic. I'm just saying that I kind of wasn't raised that way. I mean, that was, well, that was silly. But let me explain. You know, my mom, one of her favorite sayings is, when I die, bury me upside down so you can kiss my ass. And there wasn't any romanticism about life or about people dying and staying with you and anything like that. It was brutal. And I like brutal. It feels so good to me. It's hard to explain. Maybe you have to be raised in that kind of a brutal atmosphere to enjoy it. When Steve, my best friend who died, was coming to the realization that his consciousness would not live on past his death, we were taking a very large dose of LSD, and we were on a frozen lake bed in Colorado, and it was about, I don't know, minus 15 or so with the wind chill factor. And that's in one of my playlists on consciousness. And he said to me, when you die, you die. And I said, yep. And then there was silence. Silence. Because there's nothing else to say. And to me, that's better than saying anything. Because in that silence is the essence of it. Now, that's describing a state of consciousness, that thing I just did. And it's very hard to explain unless you just get it. And you probably get it. It's sort of like saying that's all there is. But when you say that's all there is, it takes away from it. You got to say nothing, and then you feel it as a kind of consciousness. Now, why is it that I felt that my greatest depth of sorrow for anyone that's died was Steve, my best friend, when I was pretty young, in my 20s? I suppose part of it is that when he died, it was completely unexpected. And I suppose that he had great potential. He had a beautiful wife, a son. He'd just become a physician. His whole future was ahead of him. But I believe strongly that the reason why I missed him so much is I felt cheated of his presence throughout my life. Because I used to talk to him in my head when I wasn't talking to him on the phone. He was in Colorado, I'm here in Miami. He existed in my head, and that's kind of what Paul was talking about, people being alive. I mean, nobody thinks you're really alive when you're dead in someone's head. You're not going to have to pay taxes and stuff. Death and taxes. But over time, without that reinforcement, he died in my head, so I'm not able to talk to him anymore. Now, maybe for some people you can keep that going, but a big part of Steve existed in my head but can't exist forever. Because to me, when I was talking to him in my head throughout my day, he was alive. And when I lost that ability, he was dead. But the truth is, he was just dead when he died. And somehow that feels good to me. I like the brutality. I like the finality of it. But I felt cheated, I suppose, robbed of this relationship, this wonderful person that I loved, that I could communicate with like nobody else except one other person. That was like a romantic relationship, and that's different. He was my best friend. Now with my father, we had a great relationship. And that played out, and I feel very satisfied with that. And I don't think I felt I was cheated. He lived 81 years. And he had a full life, and we did a lot together. We spent a lot of time together, and I'm really lucky. Now, there's lots of factors in how all this works, but I guess the main thing I'm getting at is that human beings create this artifice, this pleasantry, and I suppose we have to. It helps us. And I'm not saying that's bad. I think it's good. I actually, in my comments, was talking about the case in my video, Atheist Advantage, that I think there are cases where we want to live in daydreams, where we don't want to face reality, because I don't think it's beneficial. And you can read that if you care to. And then I was also arguing that we also want to, depending on the situation, because I don't think things are that fucking simple, people. And, people make arguments just one way. And, how often is that right? Well, almost never. I mean, because that's a philosophical point. The real world is far more complex. You get all sorts of exceptions and all. But, as far as I'm concerned, when you're dead, you're dead.